bitches, every city in my tribe. Look behind. Booty dominate the world, peaches ripe.
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. Your makeup looks great so far.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So if it's okay, I'd love to talk about abortion.
Sure.
So what's your take?
Legal without restriction.
Oh yeah. Like what do you argue though? Like bodily autonomy, viability.
I think it depends on what subject we're talking about. So I assume you think abortion should be illegal?
Yeah, except in the case of like medically necessary abortions.
Okay. Why?
Well, I believe outside of medically necessary abortions, it's the unjust killing of a human, and in any other situation in society, we wouldn't deem, outside of protecting yourself, other reasons to justly take a human life.
Okay. Well, what makes an abortion unjust?
It's unjust because, I'm not really sure how to explain it. Like, why would it be unjust to kill somebody without a reason to defend yourself and like murder, right? Because they have the right to life and nobody has a right to infringe upon that right, again, unless they're defending themselves.
Okay. So when we look at the right to life, as a right in general, we see people who have the right to life as their life is unproblematic.
Mm-hmm.
Where with a fetus, obviously their life is problematic because they require life support.
Mm-hmm.
And not only life support, but the only life support would be another human being's body. So even if I do give you the right to life, you have to establish why they have the right to the uterus.
Okay.
Because that doesn't come with the right to life.
Yeah. So what do you mean by their life is problematic? Like, what would deem somebody's life being problematic?
I told you they require life support.
So
They're not an individual.
So a fetus's life is the only life that is problematic.
I'm not not necessarily, because there are cases in society where we do give agency to family members, depending on obviously their medical condition.
Uh-huh. So if somebody causes more work or like is more dependent on somebody or like machinery, they would be considered problematic in your eyes?
No, I'm not necessarily stating dependency. I'm talking about life support in general.
So if somebody's on life support, they're problematic.
In terms of how we're talking about the right to life, yes. Because would it be immoral to essentially turn off that machine? Because that's what abortion is turning off the machine.
Yeah, it's actually, we don't have the right to turn off somebody, like, let's say they're in a coma, unless they're deemed brain dead, right?
You actually do, depending on, like I said, they do give families agency to make those decisions. If a wife is in a coma and on life support, the husband can choose to have the life support removed.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if they're going to wake up and the doctor says there's a high chance of them waking up, I'm not trying to like appeal to legality, but it's simply illegal to say I want them to pull the plug. Like,
not if you have agency, it's not. And doctors typically can't, in some cases, give those types of diagnosis where it's they could wake up. There's a 90% chance they will wake up.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, you're just wrong. Like, you simply cannot do that. It's illegal.
That's incorrect. What happened with Terry Shrivo?
I don't know who that is.
Well, can't help you there.
Hold on. Okay, so Do you have like a source in what says that we can like unplug people in a coma?
Well, I just gave you a real world example.
Okay, what was her name?
Terry Shrivo.
Is it SCHIAVO?
I'm not sure. Let me see here. Yes.
Okay.
Are you going to read it right now?
No, I was just pulling up the source. I can read it when we're done.
Okay.
So back to the just from like scanning this, she was in an irreversible vegetative state. So of course she could unplug. But anyway, so
Right. I mean, typically a lot of vegetative states can be irreversible. It doesn't mean that they're brain dead, though.
she was in an irreversible state. The doctor deemed her to be
Right,
in
but
an
she still was
irreversible
on life support.
vegetative state.
So you're saying that it is illegal for a family member who has agency
Mm-hmm.
to decide that their loved one should not be on life support.
Yes, if there is a chance for consciousness and they're not in an irreversible state, such as like a vegetative state or in a brain dead state, they cannot. It is illegal to do that.
What law is that?
One second.
You don't have the law?
No, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Well, again, you still need to establish why they have the right to someone's uterus, because even in these scenarios, they're hooked up to machines, and that is very different than someone who's hooked up to a living human being.
Yeah, so I believe in parental obligation, and I would assume you do as well.
Well, parenthood is a social construct.
Sure. But do you believe in that social construct?
Yes, but I don't think it can be applied black and white like I think you're going to apply it when it comes to pregnancy. Alexa, stop. Because what creates a parental obligation?
Causal obligation if you decide to have that baby. From that moment on until you give up that parental obligation, you have an obligation.
So if you decide to have that baby, so if I don't decide to have that baby, I can have an abortion.
No, if obviously if you have an abortion, you don't have an obligation because the baby's dead. But I'm talking about
But
specifically when it
you
comes to
started with
parental.
the framework if you
Yeah,
decide to
so
have
I'm
that baby.
specifically talking about outside of pregnancy. That's where the parental obligation when it comes to our law comes from. When we talk about during pregnancy, obviously the causal obligation applies to when she's pregnant, right? So it's basically the same thing. I was just giving you an specific
What do you mean it's
example.
the same thing?
Yeah, so you have parental obligation when you are a parent. I mean, when you are pregnant, sorry.
Why?
Because of your action of getting pregnant.
Okay, so what action is that?
Having sex, obviously, I don't know how else you would get pregnant.
So a surrogate has no parental obligation.
While she is pregnant, she has a parental obligation to that child that's inside of her.
But
When
she
she
didn't have
gives up,
sex.
when she gives up, yeah, obviously, I said obviously there's another way to get pregnant. You can implant, right, like IVF and such. But during that pregnancy, a surrogate would have a parental obligation. But once she gives that child up to the mother that wants that child, she no longer has a parental obligation.
I disagree because I don't think a surrogate at any time is a parent.
Okay, so you think a surrogate could just like do a bunch of drugs and like drink alcohol or do whatever she wants to her body, like starve herself? She doesn't have
Well,
those
that's why they
obligations.
have contracts when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to the owners of the zygote and the surrogate.
Mm-hmm.
The contracts are pretty extensive that actually outline what you're going to do, what you can or cannot do, and even pre-makes choices in the case of if things happen that complicate the pregnancy. And
Yeah,
then
but
they
the
also pay them for their services.
yeah, so that example would be using causal obligation because she caused herself to be pregnant in the way of
It
being
would not. It
implanted.
would be contract law.
No, when I'm specifically talking about how she got pregnant, which would be implanting herself or however that is done, right? So, yeah, she signed a contract, which pregnant women don't typically do unless they are a surrogate, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the form of which she got pregnant, which in surrogacy, you implant yourself. In a regular pregnancy, you have sex and you are therefore pregnant.
Right, but I would think that you would need to be able to consistently apply it to all forms of pregnancy, and I don't think you can.
Wait, so you're saying there isn't different forms of causal obligation? Like, basically, what you're saying is there's only one way to have a result from something, which is just
You're
not
just
true.
essentially saying because you are incubating an egg, a fetus, you owe it something. And
Yes, causal.
I reject that notion
Why?
because you don't owe anyone your body.
So you don't believe in parental obligation because when it comes to parental obligation outside of pregnancy, when you have under the law parental obligation, you are required to use your body to sustain that life. When it comes to like
And
feeding
if we're
it,
going to talk
taking care
about
of
when it
it.
comes to care, I think there is a level of reasonable care where pregnancy
Hmm.
would be considered extraordinary care. But
Hmm.
in that case, you've opted in to being a parent.
Yeah. So how do you
Where
opt out
if
of
you
pregnancy?
have an
Or
abortion, you're
uh-huh.
clearly opting out.
Yeah. So how do you opt out of parenthood outside of pregnancy?
Why is that relevant?
You can just like answer the question. I'm wondering how
Well,
you
I'm
do that.
asking you why that's relevant because it just feels like you're trying to treat parenthood outside the womb as the same as parenthood inside the womb, and they're not.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. You have to substantiate why it's a difference, and I'm trying to get down to that. So why
Really?
or how do
One
you
is
opt out of
a
pregnancy?
material dependency and one is a physiological dependency?
Wait, so you would say breastfeeding is a material dependency?
Yes.
No, it's not. It's created from inside your body. They're using your breast to sustain or receive nutrients. It's not a material dependency.
Right. But if I take the breast milk and I put it in a bottle, will they
Hmm.
still drink it?
Yes, it's
So it's
still
not a physiological dependency. It
so it
is the
doesn't come. You're
material that they
saying
are
you're saying
dependent on.
breast milk in a bottle didn't come from her body.
It did, but the baby's not dependent on my body. I could even get breast milk from another person.
Yeah, so let me give you an
Where
analogy. So
again, in pregnancy, I can't give my fetus to anyone else.
right, cool. So let me give you an analogy. And I'm sure you've heard it because I've seen you in comments where I've given this analogy. So I'm a mother, right? I have like a 4 month old, um, and I'm breastfeeding, and that's the only means of breastfeeding or sustaining that child for whatever reason. Um, I get
Why,
an
whatever
infection.
reason?
It's an analogy. That's the analogy. There's no other choice.
Right, but why are you saying that this is analogous to pregnancy?
Because breastfeeding provide nutrients such as a woman's body when she's pregnant.
Okay, but you have to give the condition in this aspect that there's no other option.
Yeah, you didn't let me finish. Like that's why I'm making this specific analogy because to make it analogous, there's only two options, which is, either when you're giving it up for adoption, which would be during pregnancy, the abortion part, or you can, wait, I'm sorry. Okay, so you can either wait to give it up for adoption and, continue to nurture it, or you can just let it die immediately. Which one would you do? Which one do you have the right to do?
Can you repeat it again?
I'm so fucking cute, bitch.